Hey everybody, it's Bill Slocum. And in this part of my introduction to the National Park Service ArcGIS Online for Organizations little web series, I'm going to talk about customizing your web map display. Now, a little bit of housekeeping. Neither the National Park Service nor NC State University endorses or recommends any commercial products, processes, or services. This material may not be used for advertising or product endorsement purposes. This material is intended for educational purposes only. Neither the U.S. government nor NC State University warrants or assumes any legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, completeness, or usefulness of any information, apparatus, product, or process disclosed. So, customizing your web map display. You've already seen, hopefully, some of my other little videos in this series. And one of those videos that's really important is creating your web map. And another important video is customizing your informational pop-ups. Now, I've already done that, so now I'm ready to customize my web map display to make that aesthetically pleasing map. So here are some things you need to think about. You need to look at your layer order. How are your layers organized, and are they in a logical order within your map? Are any layers covering up any other layers? You need to think about that. And also look at changing the style. How are the features represented? Are the points represented with big black dots or little bitty dots that you can't see? Are those markers inhibiting someone from seeing something else on your map? Or maybe a polygon layer is covering up points or lines such as trails. So think about those layer styles. We'll also look at the options button, the more options with the little ellipses. And finally, show a little bit about the attribute table, because if you remember in GIS, those attributes attached to those spatial features are so important. So to get started with your ArcGIS Online for Organizations account, remember, please just log in to https://nps.maps.arcgis.com. Log in with your PIV card, just like you would with your Bison Connect or other applications that you use with National Park Service. So let's take a look at what I have here today. I've already created a map, and you remember I've created a map from existing services such as the park boundaries here. I've gotten that from the Lands Division, which is their authoritative service online, through ArcGIS Online. And I've also got some kilometer markers for Colonial and some interpretive signs and some trails and culverts. Now, these are okay if I'm just using this map because I understand what they are, what these layers are actually for. But if I wanted to present this map, say to my superintendent or maybe the facilities group within the park, because that's what this map is all about. You can see the title up here, Colonial National Historical Park Facilities Base Map. I might want to go in here, and I am going to go in here and change the name of these layers so that they're a little more meaningful. So the little ellipses button, the more options that you see over here, will bring up this context-sensitive menu. And there are a lot of options in here. You can zoom to the layer. You can set transparency so that you could see through a polygon layer if that's what you wanted to. You can rename the layer, and that's what we're going to do. And you can move the layers up and down in your display. I'll show you a little bit about that. You can copy that layer, so maybe you want to copy that layer and display some of the attributes in one order and some of the attributes maybe with a different type of symbol. So I'm going to simply just come in here and rename the Colonial National Historical Park kilometer markers, and I'm just going to type in kilometer markers. Look, but I'm going to use a capital here, make it look right. I'm going to say kilometer markers and say OK, and it's that simple. I'm going to go ahead and change the rest of these, but I'm going to pause the video so you don't have to just sit there and watch me. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I've renamed all of my layers except the park boundary layer. And remember from my earlier video, I actually created this or brought this boundary layer in, and these are all the boundaries within the National Park Service. But since my map is focused on Colonial, I'm just going to go ahead and, again, I'm going to rename this like I have the other data layers, and I'm just going to say park boundary. Whoop, get that in here. Sorry about that. I'll just take this out. I'll say park unit boundaries. There we go. And I have now changed that. So you can see that I can easily, by looking at the more options. I can change the name of it. If I don't want this layer, I can actually remove it. And if I want to hide the layer in the legend, I could do that as well. There's some instances where you might want to do that. And I'll let you explore that. Now, if I don't want this layer, I can simply remove the layer from my map and it's gone. And if I wanted it back, I could just add that layer back and maybe change the symbology if that's what I wanted to do. You've heard me talk about pop-ups, so I can create pop-ups, but I've got this create labels button, and it's always nice to kind of label your data from time to time so that people know what you're looking at, and it's informational. So if I just say kilometer markers and say okay, now you can see that I've actually created some labels for my kilometer markers, and I would be able to go in and customize a little bit of that if I wanted to by managing the label. And you can see that I could put it on top, or I can change the placement of my label where I would want. And in some instances, you may want to put the label directly on top of your location, or you may want to offset it like I have it here. You can also set ranges. So as people zoom in and out, the labels would turn on and off automatically so that your users do not have to do that. But I'm just going to leave my kilometer markers on as they are and just say okay. So I've actually renamed my layer. I have gone in and I have configured a label for that. But you can see they're kind of hard to see, these little dots down here. Let's look at changing that style as I talked about. And you can do that right here on the contents label with the change style button. So I'm going to click the change style button, and you have different options depending on the different types of data that you would like to change the style on. If you're changing the style on lines or polygons or points, your options will be a little bit different. So again, just different items that you need to be aware of, and you can go in and work with those. So I'm just going to change that symbol here, and you'll notice that you have a lot of different choices you may choose to label or to style your particular point. I'm just going to go with these shapes here, and I am going to, so we can make these stand out, I'm going to choose red. Now, if I just simply say okay, they've changed to these little red marker symbols here. You can click on them, but if I wanted to, I could also make those much, much larger if that is what I wanted my audience of my map to focus on. So it's just that easy to change that style. Now I'm going to change this back a little bit because that is a little intrusive to have such a large marker symbol. So I will change it to something about number 25, and you can see now that those marker symbols have changed. So it's real easy just to change that style. And once I say okay and done, if I'm happy with the way my map looks, I would go and save that map. I could do a save as and create a copy if I wanted to, but I'm just going to save this map. So now it's going to, when I share this with other people in my group, my map is going to look the same. Now I talked about your layer order. Let's take a look at that. I'm going to zoom into this area of the park up here at Jamestown Island. Okay, now it's going to be a little difficult to see, but we're going to make this happen. Okay, what you can do if you would like is you can actually move your layers up and down, and that is going to change the way that your data looks. So if you notice these interp signs down here by this trail, let's make those interp signs a lot larger. So they're the brown ones. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change my style just for a proof of concept here. And I'm just going to make this much larger. Let's just do that. So now you can see that my symbol is much larger. You can see those interpretive signs. I have an informational pop-up that if I click on it, I get that informational pop-up. But I'm going to move these layers around. Now you can see that I've moved the park trails, and now they are over top of my interpretive signs. So your layer order does make a difference. It draws from bottom to top. So the layers that are on the very top of your table of contents are going to draw on top of every other feature that you have. Now, if you're satisfied with your map, again, you can save that map, or if you don't like the way that it is configured or displayed, do go in there and change that. Do change that to make it look aesthetically pleasing so that your people using your maps understand what you're working with. Okay, one more quick thing I want to show you is you can bring up the attributes of your feature. And here I'm going to wait and let the park trails come up. Now, you see there's no ID here. There might be some fields that are empty, but you might have some that are filled in, or you might have a revision date that you don't want to show people. I can actually come in here, click on the plus button, and I can turn that off. And now that attribute is no longer visible. So I can work with my attribute table in the same way and looking at features as I can by just clicking on that point. Okay, let's close this up. And just to recap, you can change the style. You can change the style of your features by the Change Style button. You can rename your feature by clicking on the More options and renaming your layer, if that's what you choose to do. You can move the layers around so that they don't cover up important information within your map. And you can change that style. That changing style is one of the most important pieces. Okay, this is a lot of activity for you. It takes time. It's an iterative process to make your web maps aesthetically pleasing so that you can share and communicate with people in your park. Okay, thanks a lot, and I appreciate your time, and I hope you have a good day.